Imagine this. You're standing on your own property, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over your backyard. Everything is peaceful until the sound of sirens pierces the calm. You turn around to see not one, not two, but three police cruisers pulling up to your gate. The officers step out, their hands hovering near their holsters as they approach you. What could possibly be happening? I stood there, frozen for a moment. The scene felt surreal. I hadn't done anything wrong, yet here they were, flashing lights, sirens blaring. My name's James Mitchell, and I recently moved to Willow Creek, a quiet town on the outskirts of everything. I bought a ranch, a dream I had held for years, a place where I could get away from it all and be left alone. But this was not part of the plan. As I tried to process what was happening, the lead officer, Rodriguez, approached me, his eyes scanning the property. "Sir, we've received a 911 call about an armed trespasser. Can you keep your hands where I can see them?" Armed trespasser? Me? I couldn't believe it. The only crime I had committed was wanting to live in peace on my own land. Little did I know, my new neighbor, Karen, who served as the HOA president of this so-called exclusive community, had decided to take matters into her own hands. It all started with a simple request from Karen. Just a few days after I moved in, she showed up to my door, clipboard in hand, accusing me of violating HOA rules for something as trivial as parking my truck in my own driveway for a few extra minutes. That should have been the first red flag, but what followed would go far beyond parking tickets. After the bizarre encounter with the police, I thought things would calm down, but I couldn't have been more wrong. The HOA president, Karen, seemed to be doubling down on her obsession with my property. At first, I thought maybe it was just a misunderstanding, a small hiccup in the road. But when I saw Karen's car slowly creeping by my gate, a dark, familiar feeling settled in. She was watching me again, like a hawk on the prowl. The constant surveillance was starting to get to me. It didn't take long before the violation notices started flooding in. The first one was laughable. "Your mailbox exceeds the allowable height by 2 inches. What? I hadn't even realized I had a standard mailbox height to follow. But true to her form, Karen had already prepared the paperwork to issue a fine. And the next one? Oh, it was even better. Your driveway has tire marks that don't conform to HOA standards. Tire marks? From my own truck? In my own driveway? Seriously? I wasn't one to back down easily, so I gathered all my documents, all the proof that I had every legal right to my property, and kept them neatly organized in a folder titled Karen's Harassment. It was absurd how far Karen was willing to go to ruin my peace of mind. And it wasn't just the mailbox or tire marks. No, she had a vendetta, and it wasn't long before I started to feel like a target. There were days when I'd leave for town, do my business, and when I returned, I'd find more violation notices pinned to my front door. It started to feel personal. I even found her parked across the street once, parked in the bushes, watching my every move as I loaded supplies into my truck. And when I went out to confront her, she just sat there, scribbling away on her clipboard, pretending not to notice me. But there was no mistaking it. She was waiting for me to make a mistake just so she could strike. Things took a darker turn when I noticed her car idling in front of my ranch more frequently. And then, one afternoon as I was finishing up work in my barn, I saw Karen sneak around the corner of the house. I wasn't sure what she was doing at first, but I had an inkling. Sure enough, when I followed her, I saw her peering through the window of my workshop, trying to catch a glimpse of what I was doing inside. That was the moment I realized this woman wasn't just checking for property violations, she was obsessed with me. The tipping point came when I found the camera footage later that night. Karen had broken into my workshop. The footage clearly showed her using bolt cutters to break open my workshop door. She rummaged through my personal belongings and found something she should have never touched, my safe. The same safe that contained sensitive materials, documents, and records related to my past work with the FBI. She had crossed the line from a neighborly nuisance to a criminal, and in that moment, I knew I had to act. The shock of seeing her rifling through my personal, classified materials filled me with a cold dread. My life had just been put in danger, and all because Karen couldn't keep her nose out of my business.
Instead of coming clean or returning the items, Karen decided to make things even worse. She picked up the phone, dialed 911, and fabricated a story about me attacking her. She claimed that I was a dangerous criminal and that she had uncovered criminal activity at my ranch. Of course, what she didn't mention was the fact that she had just stolen classified documents from me and potentially compromised years of work. At that point, I knew the situation had escalated too far. I couldn't let Karen get away with this, and I certainly wasn't going to let her manipulate the system. I calmly picked up my phone and hit record. I played the footage for her right then and there, watching as her smug expression quickly turned to one of panic. The 911 dispatcher, who had been listening to her lies, was now hearing the truth, and the truth was damning. Within minutes, I heard the distant sound of sirens, but these weren't local police. These were black SUVs with federal plates. The FBI had arrived. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Karen was about to realize that her actions had brought down a world of trouble on her head. The FBI agents moved swiftly, securing the area and surrounding Karen. They approached her calmly, and Karen's face went white as a sheet. She had no idea what was happening, but I knew. I had seen it coming. She had just exposed herself as a criminal, and now she was about to face the consequences. The lead agent, a woman named Agent Patricia Chan, stepped forward, identifying herself with the kind of authority that sent a chill down my spine. "Ms. Henderson," she said coldly, "you are now part of an active federal investigation. The documents you stole are evidence in an ongoing investigation into a multi-state crime syndicate. Your actions have put this operation at risk." Karen's jaw dropped. She stammered, trying to explain, but there was no getting out of it. The damage was done. The FBI agents went through her car and found the stolen materials, along with the tools she used to break into my property. It was all there. Every crime she had committed, and it was all on video. As the FBI agents took Karen away in handcuffs, I stood there feeling a mixture of disbelief and relief. I had just watched a neighbor who had terrorized me for weeks unravel before my eyes. And it wasn't just me. She had messed with the wrong person, and now the entire community would know the truth about her. As Karen was escorted by the FBI agents, I stood there, still in disbelief. The woman who had caused me so much trouble, who had manipulated the HOA and harassed me for months, was now facing the consequences of her own actions. The reality of the situation hit me hard. I had been living my life peacefully, minding my business, only to have this woman invade my privacy, discredit me, and even break into my property. And now she was being carted off in handcuffs, caught red-handed with the stolen evidence. The agents quickly secured my property, taking the necessary evidence from Karen's car, including her purse, where the stolen FBI documents were still inside, along with a laptop and a black market safe-cracking device she used to break into my workshop. I watched them as they sifted through her belongings, the weight of the situation finally starting to sink in for Karen. She was no longer in control. The tables had turned. The shock didn't stop there. As the news spread, so did the fallout. The neighborhood that had once whispered about my odd hours and secretive behavior now realized the truth. I was not the criminal Karen had painted me to be. I was, in fact, an undercover FBI asset monitoring a dangerous criminal organization. The strange hours? Necessary precautions. The secrecy? A safety measure. The very things Karen had used to justify her actions now became the reasons for her downfall. Meanwhile, Karen, still trying to justify her actions, was now being confronted by the reality of her criminal charges. The FBI had enough evidence to charge her with multiple felonies: theft of government property, breaking and entering, obstruction of justice, and evidence tampering. She had jeopardized not just the federal investigation, but also my safety as well as the safety of the community. The crime syndicate we had been investigating had already gotten wind of her actions. As a result, some of the suspects had destroyed key evidence, and others had fled the area, making it harder for the FBI to track them down. Karen's ignorance and overzealous need for control had now compromised years of hard work. The next few days were a whirlwind. I was contacted by my FBI handler, who expressed frustration over the breach, but also relief that the damage could be contained. The case had been set back, but it wasn't over. Meanwhile, Karen was in federal custody, being interrogated, and her lawyer, who had arrived in a panic, was already preparing a defense, though it was clear, based on the overwhelming evidence, that it wouldn't hold up. As the news coverage ramped up, Karen's reputation crumbled. The woman who once held herself as the Queen of Willow Creek, the HOA president who dictated how others should live, was now a criminal in the public eye. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The same person who had made it her mission to impose petty regulations on the lives of others had just thrown away her own future by breaking the law. The HOA board, which had blindly supported Karen for so long, quickly distanced themselves from her. They called an emergency meeting, and in a unanimous vote, Karen was removed from her position as HOA president. It was a public spectacle. The once feared HOA president had been ousted, and the residents, many of whom had long suffered under her reign, were relieved. It was like watching a tyrant fall from power. What followed was the complete unraveling of Karen's life. Her real estate business, once thriving, crumbled as clients withdrew, unwilling to associate with someone under federal investigation. The country club revoked her membership, and even the Garden Society, where she had been a longtime member, asked her to step down. Her carefully constructed life of perfection had disintegrated, all because she couldn't resist the urge to meddle in someone else's life. I, on the other hand, was left with mixed feelings. Yes, I had won in the end. I had my privacy back, and Karen's harassment was finally over. But the damage was done. Karen's obsession with controlling my life had cost me valuable time and peace of mind, not to mention the risk she had posed to my undercover work. While I could breathe easier knowing she would no longer torment me, I couldn't forget the emotional and psychological toll her actions had taken on me. At the same time, I felt a sense of justice. I had stood my ground, remained calm in the face of her absurd accusations, and had used the law to protect myself. In the end, Karen had shown the world exactly what happens when someone tries to overstep their bounds, and it wasn't pretty. As I sat on my porch the day after Karen's arrest, reflecting on everything that had transpired, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the legal rights that had protected me, grateful for the support I had received from my friends and neighbors, and grateful that the truth had come to light. The story of Karen's downfall is not just a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power. It's a reminder of how important it is to stand up for your rights, no matter how small the issue may seem. Even in the face of a powerful adversary, the law is there to protect you, and truth always has a way of coming to light. Never let anyone undermine your rights or make you feel small because of their own insecurities. Sometimes the best way to handle a bully is with patience, evidence, and when necessary, the legal system.